Welcome to our channel, Crime Loom, the place where true crime stories come alive. She thought she had found comfort after loss. He seemed gentle, patient, and kind. In her lonely nights, he brought laughter and warmth. She trusted him. But behind his smile was a secret she could not see, a plan waiting in the shadows. This is the story of Emily and Daniel, a story of trust given and trust broken, a story of fear, betrayal, and survival. Rain fell softly as Emily walked home from the bus stop. She pulled her coat tight and listened to the sound. Rain always made the world feel slower, like it was giving her time to breathe. She needed that. Her father had passed away 3 months ago, and the little brick house with the blue door felt too big now. Inside, she kept everything the same. Her father's chair still stood near the window. His books lined the shelves. His old watch rested in a wooden box on the mantel. She told herself she would not move anything yet. It made her feel close to him. One afternoon at the grocery store, she met Daniel. He was standing in the soup aisle, looking confused by the labels. He asked her which one was best. She smiled and said the tomato one. He laughed and said he liked simple things. He had kind eyes and an easy voice. They walked out of the store together and stood under the awning while the rain came down. He told her he was new in the area and did small jobs, repairs, errands, some bookkeeping. She told him she worked at an art gallery. He said that sounded interesting, and he meant it. The next day, they met for coffee. Daniel told funny stories about his work, and he listened when she spoke. When she mentioned her father, the words slipped out before she could stop them. Daniel didn't pry. He only said, "I'm sorry. Grief is like weather. It changes." She liked that. They started seeing each other often. He fixed the squeaky hinge on her back door without being asked. He brought oranges from a man who sold fruit from a truck. He made tea when she was tired from work. He was gentle, never pushy. Emily told her friend Maya about him. Maya warned her to go slow. Emily promised she would, but she felt safe with him. He made her laugh. He made the house feel less empty. Still, there were small things she noticed. A call late at night that ended when she answered. A message flashing on his phone, gone before she could read it. He said it was from his cousin who sent hearts to everyone. She laughed it off. Another time she thought money was missing from her purse, but she told herself she had spent it without remembering. On weekends, they visited the flea market. Daniel liked to look at old tools and clocks. He said he enjoyed finding forgotten things. Emily liked watching him search. Once he left a rose on her porch with a note. "For when the day is heavy." He said it wanted a place to be. She thought that was sweet. He never asked for keys to her house. He never pushed to know the code for the small safe where she sometimes kept her father's watch. He said he wanted her to feel comfortable. At work, Emily stayed late often. An art show was coming, and she wanted everything perfect. She liked the quiet of the gallery at night. It felt like the paintings breathed when no one else was there. One Thursday, she stayed until almost 10. When she reached her street, the moon was thin above the houses. The lemon tree by her door was still, but the door itself was not. It stood slightly open, her chest tightened. She told herself she might have left it like that. The wood sometimes swelled in damp weather. She tried to believe her own excuses, but unease pressed against her. She took out her phone and called Maya. Maya told her to wait outside, go to a neighbor, call the police. Emily promised she would. But when she hung up, she stepped forward and pushed the door. It swung open with no sound. Inside, the hallway was dark. She smelled the faint scent of lemon soap. She moved quietly, her hand shaking as she touched the wall. The living room was a mess. Drawers hung open. Books lay on the floor. And near the mantel, someone was bent over a bag. Streetlight through the curtains drew a silver line across his face. It was Daniel. He turned and froze when he saw her. For a second, his expression was shock. Then it changed. His eyes hardened, his mouth pressed tight. The bag lay open at his feet. Inside, Emily saw her pearl earrings, her grandmother's brooch, and the wooden box with her father's watch. Her stomach dropped. Every excuse she had made, every warning she had ignored, came rushing back. The late calls, the missing money, the way his eyes sometimes lingered on the mantel. "Emily," he said softly. His voice had no warmth. "You came home early." She could not speak. Her throat felt closed. The man who had brought her oranges and fixed her door was now a stranger in front of her. The silence stretched heavy between them. She took a breath, but it felt sharp and cold. She said his name. It sounded strange on her tongue, like it belonged to someone else. Daniel didn't move closer, but he didn't step back either. He only stood there, watching her. The night outside was quiet. The wind chime gave a single note, and Emily, standing in her own home, realized the truth. She had trusted him, and he had broken that trust in the cruelest way. Emily stood frozen, her back near the door. Daniel's eyes stayed on her, calm but sharp. The bag with her things lay open between them. She wanted to scream, but no sound came. Her chest rose and fell fast. Daniel took one slow step toward her. "Listen," he said. His voice was soft, almost gentle, but it was not the same voice she had known. "It's not what you think." Emily shook her head. She wanted to believe him, but the truth was right in front of her. The drawers pulled open. Her father's watch in his bag. "Her home torn apart, please, Daniel," she whispered. "Tell me why." He stopped moving. His hands curled at his sides. For a moment, his face looked tired, almost sad. "I needed help," he said. "I had no choice. Just let me take this and I'll go. You'll never see me again." Her stomach turned. She thought of the evenings they spent together. The tea, the stew, the rose on her porch. Were those all lies? Were they just steps in a plan? "You lied to me," she said. Her voice shook, but her words were clear. Daniel's jaw tightened. "I didn't lie about everything," he said. "I liked being with you. I meant that, but I needed money. I thought you'd never know. I thought I could be careful." Her heart cracked at his words. Careful. That was the word he chose. Not sorry, not love. Just careful. Emily stepped back toward the open door. Her hand brushed against the frame. She thought of running outside, shouting for help, waking the neighbors. But Daniel's eyes followed her, and she felt trapped in their stare. "Don't," he said softly, but there was a sharp edge under his tone. "Don't do anything you'll regret." Her fear turned to anger. "You already took enough," she said. For a second, they stood in silence. Then Daniel bent down and closed the bag. His hands moved quick, practiced. He slung it over his shoulder. "I didn't want you to see this," he said. "But now you have." Emily's hand gripped her phone in her pocket. She could call the police. But if she did, would he stop her before they answered? Her fingers shook too much to press the screen. Daniel stepped closer, his shoes making no sound on the rug. "Emily, I don't want to hurt you," he said. "You've been good to me, but I can't go back empty-handed. Understand?" She stared at him. She thought of her father's words when she was little. "People show you who they are if you're willing to look." She had looked away too many times. Now she could not. Her voice was quiet but steady. "Put the bag down, Daniel, please." His face changed again. The softness vanished. His eyes went cold like glass. He shook his head once. "I can't." The air between them grew heavy. Emily's heart pounded. She felt the weight of the silence, the dark, the rain still dripping outside. Then she moved. She turned and ran out the door, down the steps, into the night. Her shoes splashed in puddles as she crossed the street. Behind her, she heard his voice calling her name, but she didn't stop. She ran until her lungs burned. She reached Maya's apartment just 6 blocks away. Her friend opened the door in shock as Emily collapsed inside, gasping. The words spilled out. Daniel, the break-in, the bag, the watch. Maya's face went pale. They called the police. 2 officers came quickly, their radios crackling in the night. Emily told them everything, her voice trembling. They nodded, asked questions, wrote notes. They drove to her house, but when they entered, Daniel was gone. The bag was gone, too. The house was quiet again, but it no longer felt like hers. Emily walked through the rooms with the officers. Her hands shook when she saw the empty space on the mantel where the wooden box had been. The officer asked if she had noticed anything strange before tonight. Emily thought of the late calls, the missing money, the message on his phone. She nodded slowly. "Yes," she said. "I noticed. But I wanted to trust him." Maya touched her arm gently. "It's not your fault," she whispered. Emily wanted to believe that, but inside she felt foolish. She had opened her life to Daniel. She had let him close. And he had used that trust to steal from her. The next day, the police searched for Daniel. They asked neighbors, checked cameras on the street. One old man down the block said he saw him leave with a bag, walking fast into the night. But Daniel was clever. He had disappeared. Days passed. Emily went to work at the gallery, but she could not focus. Every sound made her jump. Every stranger's face on the bus made her heart race. She felt like he could be anywhere, watching. At night, she sat awake in her father's chair. She thought of his advice, his calm voice. Be careful with trust, Emily. It is a gift, not something to give away to anyone who asks. She wished she had listened more. Maya stayed with her some nights. He'll be caught, Maya said. People like him can't hide forever? Emily nodded, but her heart was heavy. She thought of Daniel's smile, his laugh, the way he made stew in her kitchen. It was hard to believe that man and the thief were the same person. But then she remembered his eyes that night. Cold, unfeeling, and she knew which version was real. A week later, the police called. They had found Daniel's name linked to other cases. Families who had lost someone, women living alone, people with heirlooms worth money. He had a pattern. He would enter their lives, gain their trust, and then take what mattered most. Emily sat on her bed, holding the phone to her ear. She felt both sick and relieved. She was not the only one. He had done this before. She was just one more mark in his long line of lies, but she also felt stronger. The secret behind the crime was not just greed. It was trust. He stole trust before he stole anything else, and Emily promised herself she would not let him take that from her again. Emily tried to go back to her normal life, but it was not easy. The house felt different. The air seemed heavy, and every time she walked into a room, she half expected to see Daniel standing there. The memory of that night stayed sharp in her mind, the look in his eyes, the bag with her father's watch inside. The police called again. They had not found him yet, but they told her to stay alert. They said he might try to contact her. That thought made her stomach twist. Why would he? He had already taken what he wanted. Still, she locked every window, double-checked every door, and kept her phone close at all times. At the gallery, she tried to focus on work. The new exhibit opened, and visitors filled the rooms, admiring the paintings and sculptures. Emily smiled when she needed to, answered questions, and guided guests. But inside, she felt tired and distracted. She caught herself looking over her shoulder, watching strangers more closely than before. One evening, after the gallery closed, her boss asked if she was all right. Emily gave a small smile and said she was fine. But she knew she wasn't. She was carrying fear like a shadow that never left. Maya checked in often. She brought food, stayed over some nights, and reminded Emily she was not alone. He's going to slip up, Maya said. The police will catch him. Emily nodded, but the waiting was hard. She hated feeling powerless. A few days later, a police officer visited her house. He showed her some photos. Daniel in different places, different cities, different women. He uses different names, the officer explained. He earns their trust, then disappears with their things. Emily looked at the photos. In each one, Daniel wore a smile. It was the same smile he had given her. For a moment, her chest ached. She remembered how safe she once felt with him. Then she remembered the open bag, the cold look in his eyes, and she felt only anger. That night, Emily sat in her father's chair and thought. Daniel had taken her watch, her earrings, her brooch. But what hurt most was the way he had taken her trust. She realized she did not want to just wait for the police. She wanted to understand him. She wanted to know why he had done this, and maybe in some way take back a little of her power. She pulled out her laptop and began searching. She typed his name, the one he gave her. Nothing. She tried other names the police had mentioned. Slowly, pieces appeared. Small news reports, a case in another town where a woman had been tricked. A story about missing antiques. No clear answers, but enough to see the pattern. He always chose people who were vulnerable, people who wanted comfort, people who needed someone to lean on. Emily closed the laptop and sat back. She thought about the first day she met him in the grocery store. How easy it had been for him to start a conversation, how natural he seemed. She realized he had probably planned it. He had seen her alone, still grieving, and chosen her. The thought made her angry, but it also gave her strength. She was not weak anymore. She knew the truth now. Days passed, then a week. Emily tried to rebuild her routine. She watered the lemon tree, cleaned the gallery, called her mother more often. Slowly, she began to feel a little steadier. But one evening, as she walked home from the bus stop, she felt eyes on her. The street was quiet, the air cool, the sky darkening. She quickened her steps. Her heart pounded. When she reached her house, she looked back. No one was there. Inside, she locked the door and leaned against it. Maybe it was her mind playing tricks, or maybe it wasn't. The next morning, she found an envelope on her porch. No stamp, no address, just her name written in neat letters. Her hands shook as she picked it up. Inside was a single note. "I'm sorry." The handwriting was his. Emily dropped the paper as if it burned. She stood frozen, staring at it on the floor. He had been here. He knew where she lived, of course, but the fact that he had returned terrified her. She called the police right away. An officer came and took the note. He told her it might be a trick or it might be real. Either way, Daniel was near. That night, Emily could not sleep. She sat awake, listening to every sound. The creak of the floor, the hum of the fridge, the rustle of leaves outside. She thought of Daniel writing the note, folding it, leaving it on her porch. Did he mean the words, or was it just another lie? Maya urged her to stay with her for a few nights. Emily agreed. She packed a small bag and left the house. But even at Maya's, she could not relax. The note stayed in her mind. The way he had written only 2 words. No explanation, no plan to return what he stole. Just, "I'm sorry." Emily wondered if he wanted her to forgive him, or if he just wanted to remind her that he still had control. The police promised they were searching. They said Daniel's name was now on alerts across the region. But Emily knew he was smart. He had done this many times before. He knew how to disappear. Still, she held on to one thought. People like him always made mistakes. He would make one again. And when he did, she hoped she would be ready. She returned home after a few nights at Maya's. The house was the same, but she felt stronger. She had faced the worst already. She had seen his true face. She told herself she would not live in fear forever. As she stood by the window, looking at the empty spot on the mantel, she made a silent promise. Daniel had taken her father's watch, but he would not take her future. She would not let him. The night grew quiet. The wind chime rang softly. Emily sat down in her father's chair, held a blanket close, and whispered to herself, "This is my home. He cannot have it." For the first time in weeks, she felt a small spark of peace. Emily's life became a mix of fear and determination. She tried to keep working, tried to live normally, but every corner of her world carried Daniel's shadow. She walked faster on the streets. She kept her lights on at night. She jumped at sudden sounds. The gallery helped distract her. The art show was going well. Visitors filled the rooms, and Emily forced herself to smile and explain the work on the walls. But deep down, she felt as if she was only pretending to be okay. One evening after closing, she stayed behind to fix a crooked frame. The empty gallery was quiet, and her footsteps echoed. She heard a sound outside, like a shoe scraping the ground. She froze. Slowly, she walked to the window and peeked through the blinds. A figure stood across the street, half hidden by a lamppost. The man wore a dark jacket, head lowered. He didn't move. Emily's heart raced. She pulled the blinds shut and stepped back. She wanted to believe it was just a stranger, but the feeling in her chest told her it was Daniel. She called Maya, whispering into the phone. Maya told her to stay inside and call the police. Emily nodded, though her hands were shaking. By the time the police arrived, the figure was gone. The officers searched the street but found nothing. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She sat in her father's chair, staring at the empty mantel. The note he left, "I'm sorry," kept echoing in her head. Sorry for what? Sorry because he meant it? Or sorry because he had been caught? She didn't know. The next day, the police called again. They told her Daniel had been spotted in another town, but by the time officers arrived, he had already vanished. "He knows how to run," one officer said. "But he can't run forever." Emily wanted to believe that. She told herself to stay strong, Still, the feeling of being watched did not go away. At the bus stop, she felt eyes on her. At the grocery store, she thought she saw him near the back aisle. Once, she even smelled the faint scent of his cologne when she walked past a corner near her street. Maya urged her to take a break, to leave town for a while. But Emily shook her head. "This is my home," she said. "I can't let him drive me away." Instead, she tried to prepare. She bought stronger locks for the doors. She kept a flashlight and her phone beside her bed. She even placed a small alarm on the windows. It made her feel a little safer, though she knew nothing could erase the fear completely. One night, as she lay in bed, she heard a noise outside, like footsteps on the porch. She sat up, heart pounding. The wind chime moved, ringing softly in the darkness. She held her breath and listened. Then silence. The next morning, she found another envelope on the porch. This time, it held a photo, her photo. It was of her standing at the bus stop a few days ago, looking down at her phone. The back of the note said only, "I miss you." Emily's blood ran cold. He was close. He was watching. She took the photo to the police at once. They looked worried. "This is stalking," one officer said. "He's not just a thief. He wants control. You need to be very careful." Emily nodded, but her hands shook as she held the photo. She could barely recognize herself in it. Nervous, small, unaware. Maya begged her to move in with her for longer, but Emily refused. "I can't live in hiding," she said. "He's trying to scare me." "I won't let him win." Inside, though, she was scared, terrified. Days turned into weeks. Daniel remained out of reach. The police searched, but he always seemed one step ahead. Emily lived each day with tension in her chest. She felt tired all the time, as if fear itself was draining her. Then one evening, something changed. Emily came home to find her front door locked, but her window slightly open. She froze, then slowly pushed the door. Inside, the house looked normal. But on the kitchen table was another note. "We could still be happy, you know." Emily dropped it at once. She called the police, voice shaking. They came, searched the house, found no one. But Emily knew he had been there. He had walked through her rooms, stood in her kitchen, maybe even touched her things. The thought made her sick. That night she finally broke down. She sat in her father's chair and cried. She felt small, powerless, trapped in a game she had never asked to play. She whispered to the empty room, "Why me? Why won't you just leave me alone?" Maya held her the next day. "He wants control," Maya said softly. "That's what this is about. He doesn't just want your things. He wants to own your peace. Don't let him." Emily wiped her tears. The words sank deep. She realized that Maya was right. Daniel was feeding on her fear. Every sleepless night, every nervous glance gave him power. Something hardened inside her. She couldn't fight him with strength, but maybe she could fight him another way. She decided to be smarter. She spoke to the police again. She asked if she could set up a camera in her home. They agreed and helped her place small devices in different rooms. She also told her neighbors about him, gave them his photo, and asked them to watch. For the first time, she felt like she wasn't alone in this battle. A week passed. The cameras stayed silent. Emily began to hope that maybe he was finally gone, but deep down she doubted it. Daniel was too proud to vanish quietly. One night, while reviewing the camera feed, Emily froze. There he was. Daniel. His face clear, his body moving through her living room as if it still belonged to him. He looked at the mantel, touched the empty space where the watch had once been, then smiled faintly at the camera as if he knew she would see him. Emily's heart raced, but she felt something else too, anger stronger than fear. He wanted her to know he had been there. Fine. Now she had proof. She called the police right away. They promised to act fast. This time, Emily felt a small spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, his time was running out. The video changed everything. For weeks, Daniel had been a shadow, a ghost slipping in and out of Emily's life. Now he was caught on camera, clear as day. His face, his movements, even the smirk he gave the lens, it was all there. Emily felt fear when she watched it, but also a strange relief. She wasn't imagining things. She wasn't crazy. He really had been coming back. The police took the footage right away. They promised to use it to track him down. "This is strong evidence," one officer said. We'll get him, Emily clung to those words. She wanted to believe them. She needed to believe them. Still, nights were hard. Even knowing the cameras were there, she found herself lying awake, listening to every sound. The creak of the floor, the hum of the heater, the wind pressing against the windows. She told herself he wouldn't dare come back now. But the thought of him standing in her living room, smiling at the camera, made her skin crawl. Maya stayed close. She came over often, bringing food, helping with chores, even sitting with Emily late into the night. "He won't win," Maya said firmly. "You're stronger than this." Emily nodded, grateful for her friend. Without Maya, she didn't know if she could have endured it all. Days turned into another week. Then the police called. They had a lead. Daniel had been spotted in a motel outside the city. They planned to arrest him. Emily's hand shook as she listened. Could it really be over? That night felt endless. Emily sat in her father's chair, staring at the mantel, whispering prayers under her breath. She didn't sleep. She just waited for the phone to ring again. At dawn, it did. The police had him. Daniel was in custody. Emily covered her mouth with both hands as tears filled her eyes. For the first time in months, her body relaxed. The weight on her chest lifted just enough for her to breathe. She whispered, "Thank you," though she wasn't sure if it was to the police, her father, or just the universe itself. Later that day, she went to the station to give a final statement. Daniel sat in another room behind glass. She didn't want to see him, but part of her needed to. When she finally did, her heart twisted. He looked different, tired, smaller somehow. He wasn't the charming man she had once let into her home. He wasn't the gentle listener who had made her tea. He was just a thief, caught at last. Still, when his eyes lifted and met hers through the glass, she felt a shiver. For a brief moment, his lips curved in the faintest smile, like he still held some secret. Then the officers led him away. Emily sat down with the detective. They explained that Daniel had been wanted in several towns. He had stolen from many people, mostly women who were grieving or alone. He used different names, different stories, but the pattern was always the same. Gain trust, take valuables, disappear. Why the note? Why the picture? Emily asked softly. The detective sighed. Control. He didn't just want money. He wanted power. He wanted you to keep thinking about him, to feel small. Emily nodded slowly. That sounded exactly like Daniel. He hadn't been satisfied just to steal her father's watch. He had wanted to steal her peace, too. When she left the station, the morning sun was bright. The air smelled clean after a night of rain. For the first time in months, she felt the warmth of the sun on her skin without fear. But healing was slow. Even knowing Daniel was behind bars, she still jumped at shadows. She still double-checked her locks. She still woke in the night, heart racing, until she reminded herself, he's gone. He can't hurt me now. Maya stayed supportive. It will take time, she said. But you'll find yourself again. Emily believed her. She had survived something cruel, something heavy. She had been tricked, hurt, frightened, but she was still standing. Weeks later, the police returned her father's watch. They had found it among the things Daniel had hidden. When Emily held it again, her hands trembled. She opened the wooden box and placed it back on the mantel. Tears slid down her cheeks, but this time they weren't only sad. They were also filled with relief. She sat in her father's chair, the watch ticking softly nearby, and whispered, "It's back where it belongs." From that day on, she began to rebuild. She tended her garden again, watered the lemon tree, and cleaned the rooms she had avoided. The house slowly felt like hers once more. At the gallery, she found new joy in her work. She spoke to visitors with more confidence. She even started painting again in the evenings, something she had stopped after her father died. Each brushstroke felt like a step forward, like claiming her life back piece by piece. Maya smiled when she saw the change. "You're stronger than before," she said. Emily thought about it and realized it was true. Daniel had taken her trust and tried to crush her spirit. But in the end, she had faced him, endured him, and survived. That gave her a strength she hadn't known she had. One evening, as she sat on the porch with a cup of tea, the wind chime rang gently. She watched the sun dip below the rooftops, painting the sky with soft colors. For the first time, the sound of the chime didn't make her think of fear. It made her think of peace. She closed her eyes and breathed deeply. The house was hers. Her life was hers. And no one, not even Daniel, could take that from her again. Emily had trusted Daniel, and he betrayed her in the cruelest way. He took her father's watch, her heirlooms, and he tried to take her peace. For a time, he haunted her nights, leaving notes, shadows, and fear behind him. But in the end, he was caught. And when she saw him behind glass, tired and small, she understood the truth. He had never been as powerful as he wanted her to believe. Emily carried scars, but she also carried strength. Her father's watch ticked again on the mantel, steady as her own heart. She had faced the storm, and though trust would come slowly, she knew her life was still hers to live. Subscribe to Crime Loom, and join us as we unravel more heists, mysteries, and untold legends.